Hello and welcome to this edition of Political Capital on Bloomberg TV India, part of the world's biggest financial news network. I'm Vivek Loh. This is the show where Delhi meets the Lal Street. The war of words continues to heat up between Arvind Kejriwal's Delhi government and Delhi's private power distribution companies. The state's electricity regulator has been dragged into the issue as well. This even as state-owned power generation companies and state-owned lenders have begun to issue ultimatums. What's the way out of this deadlock? First up, Mehak is here with all that's happened on this issue in just the last few days.
Well, really, at this point in time, the DISCOMs are caught between a stone and a hard place, really. What has happened in the last 3 weeks is there have been two exchange of letters and war of words between the DISCOMs and the Delhi government, and of course some action from the electricity regulator DERC. While the DISCOMs on their part have gone ahead and said that there is no more lending which is coming in from banks and PFC and REC, which are the primary lenders to the distribution companies. The Delhi government has gone and written to DERC or the regulator saying suspend the licenses if the DISCOMs are not going to supply power to the capital. There are really three aspects to this entire situation. One, of course, is the subsidy which is due from the Delhi government to the distribution companies. And let me put in numbers here. The Delhi government owes about 110 crores from October to December 31st, 2013, and of course starting January 1st to March end 2014 to Tata Power Delhi and both the other distribution companies, Reliance companies, which is BSES Rajdhani as well as BSES Yamuna, about 37 crores and 25 crores respectively is what the Delhi government owes in subsidy for the second last quarter. For this quarter, 228 crores in subsidy is what the Delhi government owes to the Reliance companies as well. The Delhi government on its part has said that the 228 crores which it owes to these two DISCOMs, this subsidy will be adjusted by what the DISCOMs owe to other three generation companies. The second angle to this is, of course, NTPC, which is the largest power generating company, which provides power over 3,000 megawatts to the Delhi, to all the three Delhi DISCOMs. NTPC has dug in its heels and saying that they will not go ahead and give any more free power unless the DISCOMs make good their LCs or go ahead and pay what is due to them. And the third angle really here is of the companies which lend, which is PFC and REC, though informal discussions have taken place between the Delhi government, the DISCOMs and REC and PFC both have said that they are unable to lend against any assets to these DISCOMs at this point in time. Back to you.
All right, to discuss where the issue stands and what's the solution, joining me now is Praveer Sinha, who's of Tata Power, as well as a former regulator, Pramod Deo, who's the former chairman, as I mentioned, of the CERC. Thank you, gentlemen, both of you. Mr. Deo, let me come to you first. What we are seeing seems to be almost coming across as somebody out there not understanding the regulatory regime in itself. The creation of the CERC, the DERC, and other state regulators was a part of a well-thought-out reform process. Is somewhere out there a question mark being raised on that very process?
That's right, because the whole idea was that entire price determination should be taken outside political purview and it should be done by an independent body like the electricity regulator. As far as the state distribution companies are concerned, the concerned state regulatory commissions are responsible for deciding their tariff. Central Commission decides the tariff of central generating companies or any interstate matter. Now, in this particular situation, we are really looking at Delhi Electricity Regulatory Commission and what has happened in the past. Now, very interestingly, they, in the past, not to give tariff shock to the consumers of Delhi, Regulatory Commission had resorted to a device called creating regulatory assets, which basically means that the consumers owe a certain sum to the distribution companies. But issue comes is that on this there are many pronouncements, and the Appellate Tribunal of Electricity has very clearly said that in very exceptional cases, some regulatory assets should be created. Now, in case of Delhi, there is a huge burden of regulatory assets, which means this money really does not exist with the distribution company, but it is recognized that the consumers of Delhi owe this money to the companies who supply power. Now you find that yourself in a very peculiar situation. Now banks are not going to lend, or no financial institution will be lending money to distribution companies. It is immaterial whether these are government or these are private. So they have no borrowing capacity left, and unless this issue is sorted out, now they may be owing money to the major suppliers, like NTPC is a major supplier here, but they are not able to pay that money unless they have enough cash available with them. So that's why the Electricity Act had very clearly stated that when government wants to give any subsidy, that money should be paid upfront. So that means if a state regulator, like in case of DRC, has determined tariff for a certain consumer category as say like 5 rupees, and if government wants to reduce it to 2 rupees 50 paisa, that difference should be paid upfront. And that is the issue. Now here the attempt is being made that this distribution company owes some money to transmission company and of Delhi, and it should be adjusted against that. But all this money don't exist. So it is a position where it is not possible to carry on business, and that's why we find this peculiar situation.
Praveer, let me get your thoughts on this, not just purely on your operations, but let's look at this more from a larger debate point. If I understand right, and correct me if I'm wrong, the total outstanding subsidy to power players, distribution companies across India, including wholly owned government companies, is now almost close to a staggering 2 lakh crore rupees, if I'm not mistaken. Now, the point is that, of course, on the one hand, you want power to come cheaply to consumers, or as cheaply to consumers. But do you feel somewhere that politicians don't seem to understand this, that if you want to have power available, and then you need to pay for it, and that's simple mathematics of the revenues, of the gaps that are there? What would you say, therefore, on what is really going on?
A couple of issues, Vivek, I would like to bring it up front. One is, as a DISCOM in Delhi, we have been supplying power for last 11 years. There is no outstanding, or there is no payment which is due, which we have not paid, whether it is to NTPC or the Delhi Gencos or the transmission companies. So as far as Tata Power Delhi is concerned, there is no amount which is due and payable and which has not been paid. So we are at present in a situation where everything that was due has been paid on the due date, and in fact we get the rebate for making prompt payment. As far as the issue of regulatory asset is concerned, this is a problem which is a chronic problem. It is not something which is only restricted to Delhi, but restricted all over the country. We know that last year, Government of India came out with a bailout package wherein nearly 2 lakh crores was agreed to be given to the various state DISCOMs by way of partly loan, partly bond issue. And unfortunately, Delhi did not get covered because it was because Delhi was under private DISCOMs. And this is where I think the anomaly has come in, because Delhi also goes through the same pangs as any other DISCOM in the country. Over a period of time, the cost at which the supply takes place and the cost at which we procure power, there is a gap in that. And for every unit that you sell, you end up losing money. And that money is recoverable over a period of time from the consumers, which Mr. Deo rightly mentioned becomes the regulatory asset or the regulatory overhang. And in our case also in Delhi, the regulatory overhang is about 19,000-20,000 crores as of 31st March 2013. And this has to be liquidated over a period of time. There have been orders of AT on that in 3 years it should get liquidated. But if it has to be liquidated in 3 years, that would lead to very large increase in tariff during these 3-year period. And that is the reason whereby one is trying to do a fine balancing act of not having very high increase, but also not coming up with a clear action plan how to liquidate the regulatory asset. And Delhi, unfortunately, was not covered in the bailout package. And today, there is a situation whereby all of us, all the 3 discoms in Delhi, have a regulatory asset, and it's a huge challenge. How do we move forward to ensure that we continue to buy power and give service to our consumers 24/7, and at the same time not default in our payment to our generators and transmission companies from whom the supply comes. So that's where we are. Just to give you an example,
have you
the quarterly increase that takes place.
Okay, go ahead, finish your point.
Vivek. As far as the quarterly increase also takes place, which is known as the PPAC revision that is supposed to take place, that also does not happen in totality. For example, for the last quarter, that is the quarter for July, September, we did not get any PPAC increase because of elections and the code of conduct. The increase that we have got is for the quarter October to December, and that also the increase in normal circumstances would have been about 11-12%. We got between 6 to 8%. So it does not fully meet the increase in cost which is coming in, and until and unless, and this is a pass-through, this cost is provided to the discoms, their cash flow will always have a problem of under-collecting or under-realization compared to the cost at which they are procuring power.
Have you had a chance, Praveer, to sit across the table and explain this to the Delhi government? Is the Delhi government at all engaging in a dialogue at all?
Well, we have been discussing with Delhi government, and we have also been discussing with the regulator on this. And incidentally, being a public-private partnership, we have the directors on board from Delhi government, and they are fully sensitized and aware of this. But everyone needs a practical solution, and that's where the challenge is, that how do we do a balancing act between what should be the increase in tariff and what is it that the consumer can afford to pay, and what is it that the discoms can charge from the consumer. So this is not something which is very simple. It's a very complex issue, and one needs to take it in the perspective of what would be a long-term solution rather than taking a short-term solution.
But don't you think that the public utterances that seem to be coming out of the government, including a scathing attack even on the DRC when it increased that surcharge last week, it doesn't seem like there is a meaningful dialogue going on at all. It seems like a very strong position already taken, first by ordering the CAG report audit, not waiting for it, and almost seeming like saying that you all are depriving consumers of lower tariffs, when actually the reality from your point of view seems to be very different.
Well, we need to follow the law. And as Mr. Deo rightly pointed out, the mechanism today of fixing of tariff is with the regulators. And if people are not satisfied with the tariff that is fixed by the regulator, there is an appellate mechanism whereby they can move to the appellate tribunal. And still, if they are not satisfied, they can always approach the topmost court, the Supreme Court of India. So there is a mechanism, there is a law. And I think we need to adhere to that so that the process of decision making is insulated by considerations which are extraneous to the main reasons on which these increases or these tariff revisions are taking place. And whatever it may be, it's a fact today that the quality of service that our consumers receive in Delhi is one of the best, especially in our area. And to that extent, I think our consumers are very much satisfied with the quality of service and as well as the tariff that is being charged from them.
All right, I'm going to come back and pose that question to the former CRC chairman, Mr. Pramod Deo, but I'll take a quick break. Back in just a minute. Welcome back. You're watching the Political Capital. Mr. Deo, let me come to you, sir. It started off with Delhi. It's already spread to Maharashtra. And the government there is also considering something similar to do in Mumbai. This whole subsidization all over again, to say that a government will step in, pay the subsidy, sounds great. The only problem being that subsidies have not been paid in the past. How worried are you, therefore, about the entire power sector?
Well, the whole process dates back to in the 90s, when the National Development Council decided that since the health of the state electricity boards was a matter of great concern, and this was because their tariffs were not revised on time, and only way solution was to take this outside the political process, and the concept of independent electricity regulatory commissions came. That's how we had the 1988 Act of Electricity Regulatory Commission. And anyway, this was followed by, in 2003, Electricity Act, which is a comprehensive law which encompasses nearly 100-year-old Electricity Act, then 1948 Electricity Supply Act, which created these electricity boards, and finally the Regulatory Commission Act. Now, the whole question has been that can we make tariff setting a political process? And this has been an attempt, and it is expected that the regulator will do this job and he will not be burdened by political considerations. And the record of the regulators is mixed. In fact, as a chairperson, Central Electricity Regulatory Commission, I also used to be chairman of Forum of Regulators, which is a kind of a club of all the chairpersons of the State Regulatory Commission, and I was the president. Only thing is, it is a statutory body, but if you really ask me, it functions like any other club. And having worked in the Maharashtra for 6 years in the Maharashtra Electricity Regulatory Commission, I had that advantage of knowing how things are in the state. And in Maharashtra, we had a historical legacy that we could be fiercely independent and we could deal with the power shortage situation there. But in reality, it's become very difficult for a regulator to function independently, because you will find that in most of the states, yesterday's the chief secretary become a regulator there as the chairperson, or in some cases, it is the head of the technical head who has been appointed chairperson. The members also come either from the state distribution company or generation company, what used to be the electricity boards, and there are few Central Electricity Authority technical persons who find places on this regulatory commission. Now the whole issue boils to this: have we really accepted this? Because it is a long way. We are talking of the 98 Act, then we have got the 2003, we have come a long way. But when it comes to tariff setting, naturally the Chief Minister is very much aware. In fact, I still remember when we had a meeting of Forum of Regulators in Gaya, and which was addressed by the Chief Minister of Bihar, and Bihar has a very good record in this case. And there he reminded us, the Chief Minister, that he said that regulators should remember that, yes, we have created these bodies, but still people come to us and they expect that we should intervene. On the other hand, the reality also remains is that Delhi is an exception where privatization has taken place. So like Mumbai, for historical reasons, most of it has been with private. Calcutta has been with private. But all other places, it is still the government which owns these utilities, and they function as if they are extension of government. So this creates a very difficult problem. So regulator has a challenging job.
So
He's
Deo,
trying
what is
to regulate. It's not a commercial entity, utility.
Right.
Yes.
Mr. Deo, what is the role of the regulator? Because how has it been ring-fenced? When a government stands up and says, I'm going to disconnect the license, or I'm not going to allow X or YZ entity to function, what is the regulator's role? Are these the powers which the regulator has? There is a judicial setup as well. There's an appellate body. There is a higher court than that as well. What can a regulator do, and who has the powers really to delicense an entity?
Well, under the Act, there is a complete ring fencing. So it is not that the government can decide to suspend license or cancel license. Due process of law, or I'll put it more correctly, the process laid down in the law has to be followed. And it has to be the regulatory commission which will have to take a call. There would be appeal against that with the appellate tribunal on electricity and then Supreme Court. Like for tariff matters, we have these appellate bodies. Similar situation exists for cancellation of license. And license can be cancelled only on some valid grounds. Now, when we are dealing with electricity tariffs, now this becomes a highly politically sensitive issue, and every government feels. So for that, the Act also has made a provision. Section 65 very clearly says, if a government wants to subsidize a particular category of consumers, government is free to do that. But for that, the tariff which has been determined by the electricity regulator and the price at which government wants the electricity to be sold to that category of consumers, that difference has to be paid upfront. And this is very clear, it has to be upfront. And I will recall my experience when I was in MERC 2004. The elections were to take place in Maharashtra. Shiv Sena BJP had come out with a slogan that they will give free power to farmers. And the regulatory commission, we had decided tariff for farmers. And when there was a pressure on the commission, we made it very clear the law demands that state government pays this money upfront. Finance department was differing, but finally they paid this money, and the entire election campaign was fought by Congress NCP coalition, where they were showing the bills which said that the regulator had fixed tariff for farmers, which was X, and government has given subsidy minus X, so now the tariff is 0. So this is the history, and this is the kind of discipline which is required. And if you do not have that discipline, you can run into this huge regulatory assets. And regulatory assets is nothing, but this is what consumers should have paid, and they should not suffer tariff shock. But now we are finding a situation in Delhi where we are looking at the amount like something of the order of 20,000 crore. Now, if that amount is to be liquidated, in fact, today the carrying cost of that is itself coming to around 2,000 crores. So this is also has to be paid by regulators, by the consumers. So this is really not in the interest of consumers. So we are facing a problem what to do with it. Now, if these utilities were government utilities, then it will be entirely the matter of government's concern. Because there is a 51% equity by private, they are treated like private entities, and they obviously have not been included in many schemes. There is maybe justification for that. But the reality remains is that Delhi has benefited because of the regulatory restructuring that has taken place here, reform that has happened, because having lived in Delhi earlier when I was posted there, and having worked in both Mumbai and Delhi, I can clearly say that the power situation in Delhi is now comparable to what is in Mumbai. But that is the thing, cost you have to pay. Somebody has to pay. So the issue is, political issue is, who pays this cost? If government wants to pay, they are free to do that. But it will not be done by the utilities which had to run on commercial principles.
All right, gentlemen, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, both of you, for coming by and sharing your perspective on this evolving story. Thank you.